Hello everyone, my name is Angel, and for this week's assignment I have chosen the topic of CSS media queries. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to try to explain how they work and how we can apply them into our website. The first thing I would like to do is to show you a website that it hasn't been applied any CSS media queries so far. So what we got here is a basic template with a header and a footer, and also blocks in the left, center, and right of the page. As you can see, this template works perfectly, or is displayed perfectly in a laptop screen. But what happens when I try to show it in another device, for example like an iPad, I can see that everything gets smaller, and I cannot actually start to read the content of the HTML structure. For example, if I go to a Note 3 or maybe an iPhone 5, I see that everything gets smaller and smaller. Even if I make it responsible and I grab this little handler here, I can see that everything gets smaller and it's really difficult to read. So this would be like the perfect example of a website that it doesn't have any responsive design. And this is all about media queries are all about responsive design. So I would like to give you some information about the CSS media queries. Okay. The CSS media query, a media query is an expression that evaluates to either true or false. So this part of the code goes in the style section, that it can be embedded in the same page, or it can be linked to another CSS file. A media query's syntax allows for the creation of rules. So what it's going to do is we're going to write something like if statements, and if those statements are true, it's going to apply those styles to the web page that we're looking at. Also, a media query consists of a test followed by as many CSS rules as we want, with the rule block enclosed in a set of braces. If the test condition is false, the browser will just simply ignore the rule and it will move on. Also, the CSS media queries in CSS3 can be used to check for particular conditions, such as the width and the height of the browser window, or the device width and height, orientation, or resolution. Also, media queries allow for subtle to drastic changes in the appearance of a website control entirely within the site's CSS. This is especially important because sometimes we think that although there are some plugins that we can control the displaying of the website with JavaScript and other programming languages, what's special about the CSS media queries is that we can actually do it within the CSS syntax. Also, we have to know that if our media query comes last in our CSS, they will overwrite previous CSS rules, always or as long as the result to be true. And this is what it actually do is we're gonna have some sets of conditions so that the website that we're working on can be displayed perfectly on a desktop screen, or maybe a tablet screen, or on a phone, a regular phone screen. This is the syntax for a CSS media query. So within the style, within the styles, we can start by adding an add media, and then we have to input the media type. In this case, we're gonna be using the screen type, but we can also use it to we can also use the print and screen and speech type, or we can use them all and set the media type to all. Then it comes the expression, that is the parameter that will be evaluated. So in this section, in this expression, we're actually setting how much is the minimum width or the maximum width that we are setting the rules for. And then it comes the CSS style rules, that it's all the rules that are listed inside this media queries curly braces that will be applied into a website when the condition is true, when the expression is true. So what I would like you to do is what I would like to do is to work on this site, and we can start to add some to actually add some codes in order for it to be responsive with CSS media queries. So the first thing we have to do here, it's after the head tag, we have to input a meta tag that will be named viewport. Okay, so this is actually saying to the browser what type of content we're gonna be using here. So the content of this meta tag, we're gonna set the width equals to the device width, and also we're gonna set that the initial scale or the zoom will be equal to 1.0. So as you can see here, if I save this file and go to the actual file, we can see that now has changed. Every time that as we have set that the total width of the page will be equals to the device width of the screen. So as you can see, as I move, as I get this smaller and larger, everything gets adjusted. But still, for example, if we're looking at this website in a really small device screen, we can actually see that all the content and the elements get really close together. So it's not really easy to read them or anything. So the only thing that this meta tag does is actually adjusting the width and the height to the device screen. Now we're gonna I have set this this template to work on, and we're gonna be applying, we're gonna be using this CSS media query. So as I said, we're gonna start with the add media, and then we're gonna set to the media type screen, and then we're gonna set that for example, we want to this whole website to change the display changing when it's accessed by for example, a smaller device. So for example, if I set this to a max width of 768 pixels, which is the regular or the normal width for example a smartphone, this what we'll do is the code will be reading here, and when it finds this condition, it will evaluate if it's true, and if it's true, it will apply all the content that we're going to write here, all the styles we're going to write here. So for example, all of this are columns. So this is a column, this is also the flights, the menu, and the aside section that are columns. So what I want the CSS to do is actually to show these columns, but not with this width. What I want to do is to show the whole, the 100% of the columns. So if I save this, and I will try to make this a little bit bigger in order for you to see the change. What you can see here is like we are now in a width of 836 pixels. So if I get this screen smaller and smaller, it will actually get to the point where it changes. As you can see here, what it's doing this, it's actually taking into consideration this CSS media query that we have just written, and it's reading that the max width that we're going to apply this set of rules is actually 768 pixels. So when I get to the 768 pixel, it actually changes to the conditions that we're applying right here. For example, we can also combine these types of media queries. We can actually have specific CSS media queries for each screens that we're thinking that our users will access from. For example, I will also use this example, and I will write everything here. I will set a minimum width of, for example, 601 pixels, and then a max width of 768 pixels. So when the device screen it has a minimum width of this value, and it has a maximum width of this value, it will actually apply this set of rules. So let's try it out. I already saved it, and I will reload the website, and as you can see here, I'm sorry for that, you guys. I was just testing the code. What I was saying is that we can actually also set ranges for the media screen media queries to work with. For example, we can set a value between a certain width range. For example, I have said here that I want this the sets of rules, CSS rules, to be applied when we're looking at the screen, or the web page is being accessed by a screen that has a minimum width of 601 pixels and a max width of 768 pixels. And so what the browser is going to do is going to read this media query, and as you can see here, as I get it smaller, I'm actually within this range now, so everything has changed, the content has changed. And as I get even smaller, you can see that it will also change again, because the CSS media query will only work within that range of 601 pixels. So when I get to 601 pixels of width, it will change up to 768 pixels, and then it will change again. So we can see with this that it can be also combined in several width ranges. So I really hope that this has been of some help for you guys, and I'm looking forward for any questions that you may have. Good luck to you all.